So we are finishing the lesson on solving and graphing linear inequalities. So that means in order to be successful at that, you need to know how to isolate variables, which we honestly have done in every single lesson all year. So I'm thinking you guys are good at that by now. And then also to remember when to flip the inequality sign. So there's two specific situations when you need to flip the inequality sign. When do you need to flip it? When you're dividing a negative on each side of the symbol, that's one of them. What's the other one? Good, multiplying each side of the symbol by a negative. So when you're doing your inverse operations, if you multiply or divide a negative on each side, you need to flip the symbol. Otherwise, just keep the symbol the same like you do an equal sign. But the new stuff that we learned yesterday is how to tell if the line should be solid or dashed, and if the graph should be shaded above or below. Luckily, you do get to use your notes on the exit ticket. And next week, exactly 7 days from now, you'll take your topic board test. You can use your notes that day too. But remember, for the retake, which is next Friday, you do not get to use notes. So whether you need to commit them to memory or not, kind of just depends on how well you do on Tuesday. I did record yesterday's lesson and put it in the slides since it's like part 2 of the lesson, which is really just a few examples. I'll put it here in the slides as well. The practice is a worksheet, just evens or odds on it. So if you only do like the whole front of the first page, I'm going to tell you you need to do 3 more on the back page. Sorry. All right, it's evens or odds. 2, 4, 6, 8, or 1, 3, 7, 5, 9. That I will check while you are doing your exit ticket. So last 15 minutes of class, so around 9:05, I will tell you to do your exit ticket. You guys will have this practice done, I think, by that time. My first hour did, so you guys, I think, should too. And I'll check it during that time. Also during that time, I'm going to check the 4-4 practice, which was the word problems practice from right before Thanksgiving break. So whether or not you have it, today's like the one day I'll check it. And if you don't have it, you need to upload it to the link in Schoology. So again, we are taking an exit ticket last 15 minutes of class. And then throughout the class today, I'm going to be passing out your missing assignment report. So I think there's not one person that has no missing assignments. So everyone should be receiving one, and you guys can see what's highlighted and what falls under the deadline, which is this Friday. All right, any questions? And I had to reiterate this point to my last class, because when I was coming around to check their 4-4 practice, the one right before break, I had so many students tell me, like, oh, I never got it. Where are all assignments uploaded? Into Schoology. So, I mean, absolutely, when you guys come back from an absence and you guys want papers, or really as long as I'm not in the middle of teaching, if you guys want papers that you're missing, I will absolutely give them to you. But when I'm coming around to check that paper that I told you I was going to check, that's not the time to tell me you don't have it. Because like, one, you could have done it by copying it from online, like on your own paper. And 2, you could have asked me like any other time before that. So just make sure, ask me for things if you need them. Any questions in general? All right, so I guess the point I'm making is don't wait till like the last second to ask me for stuff when I'm checking it. All right, ask for it in the beginning of the independent work time. All right, so did we go over number 3 yesterday on the note sheet? Yeah, okay, so then we're going to start with number 4 as the U track. All right, so there's 3 in case maybe you didn't copy it fully, but we're starting with 4 as a U track. Anyone not here yesterday? Okay, maybe at the back table so we get this up. All right, so for number 4, am I able able to just graph it right away, the way that it looks right now? No, it needs to be in what form in order to graph it? Good. How do I do that? What would be the first step? Good. So start with what's farther from the y, which we would isolate in slope-intercept form. So get rid of the x. In order to cancel it out, we subtract it on each side. Now we have negative 4y less than what? Plus or minus 8? It would be plus because this 8 is positive right now, right? So just leave the signs the same. Leave the x negative, leave the 8 positive, but yeah, write it this way so it looks like slope-intercept form. Is the y by itself yet?
No.
How do I get it by itself? Good. And don't forget you have to do it to both terms on the other side. So then we have y by itself less than, no? What should it be? Good. And why did the sign flip? Good. So anytime you do stuff on each side of the equal sign, check if it's one of those two things that we said flips the sign. So multiplying or dividing a negative on each side would do that. And then on the right side, simplify it. Our slope can be a fraction, it just has to be a simplified fraction. So what's my slope? What's the number in front of the x even though it's not written? And it's a negative 1. So negative 1 over negative 4 should become positive 1/4. All right, you can say a fraction, we just can't have a double negative. And then what's my y-intercept going to be? H divided by negative 4 is negative 2. All right, now we can graph it. Any questions though? All right, so plot your y-intercept first. We said the y-intercept's negative 2, so that would be here on the graph. And then to find your next point, use your slope. So my rise over run is 1/4. Because it's positive, that means we're going up 1. And then always to the right 4. Or always to the right. So up 1 to the right 4. Questions about that process? If you work backwards, then do the complete opposite of what it says. That's going up 1 to the right 4, goes down 1 to the left 4. Now, before I draw my line, we need to check if it's going to be solid or dashed. So is it going to be a solid or a dashed line? Dashed. And you know because you look at the symbol, when it's greater than or less than, it's dashed. Right? So put a dashed line through your dots. And one more thing, we need to say or shade it either above or below. Since it's greater than, is it going to be above or below? Above. So dashed and shaded above the line. So remember, above would be greater than and greater than or equal to. All right, so shade with your pencil above that dotted line. And then anywhere in this shaded area is a solution. So any questions about that? All right, so make sure that's shaded. A good question on a test would be to have you graph your linear inequality and then determine if like a certain coordinate was a solution. So like what if you were asked about the coordinate 1, 1? that would be here. Is that a solution? Yes, because it's in the shaded area. What if it asks about -1, -7? So that would be here. Is that a solution? No. What if it was 8-0? So it was on the dashed line. Would that be a solution? All right. It wouldn't be, because it's on the dashed line. Anything on a dashed line is not included in the answer. If it was a solid line, then it would be included in the answer. All right, so any questions about that? All right. So now we're gonna kind of scroll down and look at 7 and 8. All right, these ones are like more of the unusual circumstances. If you think back to when we did like linear equations, there were some times where you got a horizontal line and sometimes where you got a vertical line. So this is kind of like that, except now they're inequalities. So you can either memorize that when it's y compared to a number, that the line is going to be horizontal. If you want to just memorize it that way, go ahead. Personally, I don't like memorizing random things like that. If you think back to when we did linear equations, like, is this in slope-intercept form? It is, it just has a slope of what? Of 0. So my y-intercept is -4. So here. And since it doesn't have a slope, that means that I canceled out by doing 0 divided by a number. So it has no rise, basically. So since it has no rise, it's a horizontal line. All right, you can also think of it, if this was y equals -4, we basically just drew a line where all the y values are -4. You can also think of it that way instead of just memorizing that it will make a horizontal line. All right, because like here, it's 0, -4, 1, -4, 2, -4, like it just, they're all -4 for the rest. So questions about that? All right, now I drew the line solid. Is it supposed to be solid? Yes, because if you look at the sign, it has that equal to part in there. So that means it's supposed to be a solid line. Now we need to figure out whether it's shaded above or below. So look at the sign. Y less than or equal to. Is it shaded above or below? Below. Below. And on this graph, it's pretty easy to see which region would be below, right? So shade below the line. And if you notice, everywhere that we shaded right now would be less than or equal to that -4. All right, so we shaded it in the right direction. Any questions, comments? All right, so if there's no slope, the slope canceled out, and it still kind of looks like it's in slope-intercept form, and it's a horizontal line. So y and a number that makes a horizontal line. The opposite would be when it's just x and a number, that would make a vertical line. So if you want to just memorize that, go ahead. Personally, I don't like memorizing things like that. All right, I just think of back when we did the linear equations. So it would be normally be x equals 7 we would be drawing a line where all the x values are 7. So look at your x-axis. Where would 7 be? Up to the left or to the right of the origin? Good, so find 7. Be here. And we need to draw a vertical line through that. That's where all the x values will be 7. Should the line be solid or dashed? Dashed, good, because it does not have that equal to part in there. It's just greater than. So we're going to put a dashed line, a dashed vertical line through there. And then we need to figure out where to shade. Is there really like an above or below that line? No, there's like a left and a right. That's because it's X, right? So think back to when we took notes yesterday. I'll go back real quick. When I had you guys fill in this part, I had you guys put the Y there. That was like your above and below. So when it's X, it's a little bit different. It's left or it's right. You just need to read the sign. So I need to shade where X would be greater than 7. So would that be like these numbers to the left? Are these numbers greater than 7? No. Would to the right be greater than 7? Yes. So then we're shading that way. All right, so any questions about that? All right, there's not really an above or below, you just have to read it. So X should be greater than 7. These X values like 8, 9, and 10 are greater than 7. Questions, comments? All right, so that gives us a good chunk of time, like 23 minutes to work on the practice. I want you guys to work on the practice from today, the 4-5 practice. But also, if you haven't done the 4-4 practice, the one about word problems for systems, then do that one too. So I'll be checking both while you are doing the exit tape.